Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Whiteboard Wednesdays with Vanda. Today, we're going to start delving into the software suite of NVIDIA. We've been speaking quite a bit about the different hardware because, it's just really cool. It's really exciting stuff. But the hardware without the actual software is pretty useless. Now, when it comes to the hardware and the software working together, you can imagine that there's quite a bit that NVIDIA had to build to enable the smooth operation of those massive DGXs and those massive clusters that they build out. And also bringing that into an enterprise. We think about some of the applications that you might be running already within your organization. So how do we fit GPU transformation into some of your existing platforms? And how do we manage when we've got so many different GPUs out there, maybe in an IoT kind of distributed environment? Well, NVIDIA's thought about all of these things. And today we're going to look at the first four kind of components in administrating the actual GPU environments out there. Later on, in some of our next sessions, we'll start looking into some of the more developer-orientated software elements that is directly linked to the actual GPUs. But for now, let's just look at how do we manage all of this. So the first component that NVIDIA built is something called base command, right? So base command is exactly what it says. It is literally the beginning bit that is installed directly on the actual GPU server. It basically makes sure that that GPU works. It's effectively the operating system, which is Ubuntu based, but made by NVIDIA, that contains all of the components required for those GPUs to work in terms of all the drivers, all of the actual SDKs or the software developer kits that needs to be deployed on those. And obviously you can plug and play and put in, the ones that you need, but there is a base set of drivers and pieces of software that needs to be installed onto your DGX or HGX solution. So base command is where everything starts. When you actually acquire one of these platforms, you will be working with base command. Please go and have a look at the website. There's a lot more information on the NVIDIA website as to what is contained within base command. Now, base command is what we'll install on the actual individual machine. So it's literally right there to administrate that particular box. What happens when we've got multiples of these, right? And we're actually clustering them together so that they can actually start talking. How do we manage that cluster of GPU boxes? Well, that's where we've got the Bright Cluster Manager, right? I'm just going to do CM for Cluster Manager. So Bright was actually a software company that worked with NVIDIA, but I think it was about a year ago or very recently, NVIDIA actually acquired the Bright organization, and they now form part of the NVIDIA conglomerate that's out there. But the software essentially is specifically designed to manage distributed GPU nodes, right? So let's say all of these are DGXs and they're built into a single cluster. You have to manage the workloads, the provisioning of the workloads, of the resources out across however big that might be. It might be 20 nodes, it might be 100 nodes, it might be 700 nodes if you're talking like a really big supercomputer that some of these large organizations are running. They'll be using something similar to Bright Cluster Manager to make sure that the distribution of the workloads and of the resources across that cluster is done in a very, very efficient way, and that it's resilient and that it's repeatable and that you're assigning the right workloads to the right machines in all of this. Because you can imagine, you've got maybe a couple of hundred users or 1,000 users that's working on this cluster, and they're all demanding resources off of the DGXs. Well, this is where managing all of that demand and supply of resources really comes into play. And that's what we get with the actual Bright Cluster Manager solution. Now, these are kind of core to any DGX or deployment that you might have. But you might find that in your organization, you might be running a virtualized platform. Let's say you're running general x86 servers, and you're running this behind something like vSphere, VMware environment, or you might be doing something with the containers. So you're looking at maybe something like OpenShift. So what NVIDIA has done is to plug into that and leveraging already the great scalability that you have in there and the virtualization capabilities that you have in those two environments. There's effectively a package called AI for the enterprise, right? This suite of software allows you to plug the GPUs and in future the DPUs into your existing VMware environment. So it effectively turns your VMware environment into a GPU farm. And that is really, really powerful because it allows you to reuse the investments that you've already made in terms of building and standing up those environments. Also in terms of the skill sets that you've given your administrators, they understand VMware, and really augmenting that by enabling them to consume GPU resources in a way that they're already very familiar with. They don't necessarily have to go and learn a whole set of new administrative technologies. And the demand that you might have in an enterprise makes it sometimes very difficult for that transition to happen. So actually, what NVIDIA has done, they're so focused on enabling this, is that the new DGX H100 comes standard bundled with this AI for the enterprise software suite built into the price. So they're really looking at enhancing this and helping organizations transform their data centers from just standard CPU based platforms into GPU accelerated data centers as well. And this is one of the ways that makes that transition very, very simple to do. So that's the first three we want to talk about. The last one we're going to cover for today is what they call Fleet Commander. So Fleet Commander is exactly what it means. So if you basically have multiple GPUs out there. Now think about this in a broader sense, not just necessarily in your data center, right? So you might have, AI for enterprise managing your VMware enabled data center, but you might also have workloads in the cloud. So you might have GPUs running in the cloud and a bunch of servers out there. You might have some edge platforms, right? So you might have some EGX platforms out there. You might have some Jetsons or AGX platforms out there. This might be connected to sensors. So you might have hundreds or thousands of them. You might have a manufacturing environment that's got embedded AGX platforms in them, or you might have remote sites where you're doing warehousing and you've got EGX managing some of those environments. So you could very, very quickly, depending on your business profile, end up with a large amount of these GPU enabled platforms all across your entity's locations. And it could become quite a headache in administrating that, making sure that, the same kind of functionality that you want to have in managing that cluster, you literally want to do now across the entire fleet of GPU enabled platforms that you have out there. And that's where Fleet Commander comes in. Regardless of where your GPU sits, whether it's in your data center, on some kind of edge location, in a factory somewhere, we've got multiple of these sensor connected AGXs, or it's somewhere in the cloud, Fleet Commander then talks to every single one of these and allows you to administrate and manage all of those GPUs, the inference, moving the models into them, tracking the training that each one is doing, really, allowing you to manage that fleet out there. So this is really about the simplicity of managing large environments of dissimilar distributed GPUs all over the show. So as you can see, we kind of build onto each other with this. If you start off with one box, you're going to start with base command. You're going to start getting used to that. That's all, part of the kind of the foundation of it. When you're clustering internal, like within your data center, you're going to might be using a cluster manager like Bright. And then if you're plugging into your data center into something like a vSphere or into OpenShift, you're going to be using something like AI for the enterprise. And then once you're going further than that, you start using something like Fleet Commander to make sure that you manage your GPU estate in an efficient way. So these are the kind of administrative software portfolio that NVIDIA offers, and really, really interesting, very, very clever. And we haven't even touched some of the really cool stuff like Omniverse and some of the other bits and bobs that they've got as well. But hopefully you found this interesting and it's given you a bit more clarity on how we get there. So please, thank you very much for joining us with Whiteboard Wednesdays for Vanna today, and we really, really enjoy having you with us. Thank you. Please don't forget to like, share, and follow our LinkedIn page.